February 14th, 1570. Juyongguan Pass, northern Ming Dynasty, China. A relief patrol climbing toward Watchtower 17 found them at dawn. 7 massive Tibetan Mastiffs, each weighing over 150 pounds, transformed into grotesque ice sculptures. Their chains, forged iron links as thick as a man's thumb, held them upright in positions of eternal vigilance. Frost crystallized their fur into needle-sharp points. Their jaws were frozen open mid-bark, creating silent screams that faced the Mongol steppes beyond. But these weren't just guard dogs left in a storm. Each mastiff was chained exactly 15 paces from the tower entrance. Each faced a different compass direction, and each wore a leather collar inscribed with Buddhist prayers for protection against evil spirits. The relief soldiers noticed something else. The dogs' food bowls remained full of frozen meat, water troughs untouched. These animals hadn't starved. They'd been left there deliberately. But the truth was far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Before we uncover the truth about the Great Wall Guard Tower Mastiffs, the forgotten sentries who became ice statues while guarding the Ming Dynasty's most crucial border passage, make sure to subscribe to Fear Sermon and ring that notification bell. We bring you the darkest, most overlooked chapters of history every week. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community of mystery seekers around the world. Now let's descend into one of the Ming Dynasty's most disturbing military secrets. The year is 1570, and the Ming Dynasty stands at a precipice. Emperor Longqing has ruled for 4 years, but his reign exists in the shadow of his father's catastrophic military failures. Just 14 years earlier, the Jiajing Emperor watched helplessly as Mongol raiders led by Altan Khan penetrated the Great Wall defenses and reached the gates of Beijing itself. The capital burned, thousands died, the dynasty's legitimacy crumbled. The Great Wall, that legendary serpent of stone winding across northern China, was supposed to be impregnable. 5,000 miles of fortification, 25,000 watchtowers. Yet the Mongols had exposed its fatal weakness, the human element. Guards fell asleep, soldiers deserted their posts, corrupt officers accepted bribes to look the other way, while raiders slipped through mountain passes under cover of darkness. In response, the Ming military command implemented what they called the Eternal Sentinel Protocol. Juyongguan Pass, where our story unfolds, served as one of the Great Wall's most strategic choke points. Located just 35 miles northwest of Beijing, this mountain passage had witnessed countless battles since its construction during the Qin dynasty 8 centuries earlier. The pass itself was a natural corridor through the Yanshan Mountains, with sheer cliffs rising on both sides and a single road threading through the center. Watchtower 17 sat at the highest point, overlooking 15 miles of wall in either direction. The men stationed there weren't common soldiers. They were members of the elite Bianji Wei, the Standard Guard Battalion, handpicked for their loyalty and endurance. These weren't conscripts serving mandatory duty. These were professional warriors who had proven themselves in combat. They lived in isolated towers for 3-month rotations, maintaining constant surveillance over the steppes where Mongol raiding parties gathered. But even elite soldiers needed rest. This is where the Mastiffs entered the equation. Tibetan Mastiffs weren't ordinary dogs. Bred for millennia in the Himalayan highlands, these animals stood over 2 feet tall at the shoulder and possessed bite forces exceeding that of wolves. Nomadic tribes used them to guard livestock against snow leopards and bears. A single Mastiff could hold off multiple wolves. A pack could bring down a full-grown yak. The Ming military had been deploying Mastiffs at wall fortifications since the 1540s, but the program expanded dramatically after Altan Khan's invasion. By 1570, over 2,000 Mastiffs served along the wall's northern sectors. Each tower maintained between 4 and 8 dogs, trained to patrol the perimeter and alert guards to approaching threats. Tower 17 had 7 Mastiffs, each given a name corresponding to Buddhist protective deities: Vajra, Dharma, Akshobhya, Hayagriva, Mahakala, Yamantaka, and Bhairava. The men stationed there in January 1570 formed a tight unit. Commander Feng Bao, a 42-year-old veteran with scars from 12 border engagements. Vice Commander Lu Xing, 36, known for his exceptional night vision. 5 junior guards ranging in age from 19 to 28, and a civilian dog handler named Chen Wei, a Tibetan trader's son who spoke the dog's training language fluently. Records from the garrison's logbook, preserved in the Beijing Imperial Archives, show nothing unusual about their rotation. Supplies were adequate. Weather reports were routine for January, cold, but not exceptionally so. The previous tower garrison had reported no Mongol activity for 6 weeks. This should have been a quiet rotation, but Chen Wei noticed something in the second week of January. The dogs were acting strangely. January 9th, 1570. Chen Wei's entry in the garrison log reads, Vajra refused food for the third consecutive day. Examination reveals no physical illness. The animal seems to be watching the northern wall constantly, even during sleep hours. Hayagriva and Mahakala have begun similar behavior. In Tibetan Mastiff husbandry, refusal to eat signals either illness or extreme stress. Chen Wei had handled these animals since puppyhood. He knew their temperaments, their habits, their individual quirks. Vajra, the alpha male, had never refused food in his 6 years of life. The dog's fixation on the northern wall particularly troubled Chen Wei because that direction faced Mongolia, the direction from which threats typically emerged. Commander Feng Bao dismissed the concern. His log entry from the same day states, Handler Chen Wei reports unusual dog behavior. I attribute this to the recent cold snap. Animals are simply conserving energy. No action required. But the behavior intensified. January 12, 1570. All 7 Mastiffs refused to enter the tower at night. This violated their training completely. The dogs had been conditioned since puppyhood to sleep inside the tower's lower chamber, where body heat from soldiers and animals combined to maintain survivable temperatures. On particularly cold nights, the dogs slept in a pile, sharing warmth. Now they refused. Vice Commander Lu Xing attempted to drag Dharma inside using the dog's chain. The Mastiff, typically docile with handlers, bared its teeth and growled. Lu backed away. When Chen Wei tried approaching with meat, all 7 dogs moved to the tower's entrance and formed a semicircle facing inward, toward the tower itself, toward the men inside. Chen Wei's log entry captures his confusion. The animals position themselves as if guarding against the tower rather than guarding it. This violates all training protocols. Request permission to send a messenger to Beijing requesting master-handler consultation. Permission was denied. Feng Bao's reasoning seemed practical at the time. Sending a messenger in mid-January meant risking a soldier's life in severe weather for what appeared to be a minor behavioral issue. The garrison's 3-month rotation would end in 6 weeks. The matter could be addressed then. Besides, the dogs were still alerting to potential threats. They barked appropriately when ice fell from cliffs or when mountain goats approached. Their protective instincts remained intact, merely redirected. The commander made what seemed like a reasonable decision. He couldn't have known what was coming. January 18, 1570. Junior Guard Wu Teng discovered the first Physica. Evidence that something was deeply wrong. While conducting a perimeter check at dawn, he found scratches on the tower's wooden door, deep gouges made by claws, multiple sets. The marks were fresh, made sometime during the night. The Mastiffs had been trying to break into the tower, or trying to get the men inside to come out. Wu Teng reported this to Lu Xing, who examined the door personally. His official report, discovered centuries later in military archives, includes a detail that still chills historians. The scratches are concentrated at human chest height, not at ground level where an animal would naturally scratch. It appears the dogs were standing on their hind legs using their full body weight. The pattern suggests desperation rather than playfulness. That same night, the garrison experienced what Feng Bao's log describes as synchronized howling. All 7 Mastiffs began howling simultaneously at exactly midnight, a time the dogs typically slept. The howling continued for 47 minutes without pause. Not the warning barks used for intruders, not the aggressive snarls used for wolves. A mournful, almost human wailing that echoed through the mountain pass. Several guards reported that the howling sounded like mourning, like the dogs were grieving. But for what? For whom? January 23, 1570. Chen Wei confronted Commander Feng Bao directly. The handler had spent 15 years working with Mastiffs across 3 garrison postings. He'd never witnessed behavior like this. His formal request, preserved in the archives, reads, Honorable Commander, I must respectfully insist that these animals are communicating danger. In Tibetan tradition, Mastiffs possess sensitivity to spiritual threats that humans cannot perceive. The shamans of my mother's people believe these dogs see the boundaries between worlds. I fear we face a threat that conventional military training has not prepared us for. I beg permission to conduct protective rituals or, failing that, to be relieved of duty with the animals. I can no longer guarantee their stability or my ability to control them. Feng Bao's response was bureaucratically typical. Request denied. Superstition has no place in military operations. The handler will maintain discipline among the animals or face charges of dereliction. No further discussion of spiritual matters will be entertained. That night, January 23rd, the temperature plummeted. -15 degrees Celsius, brutal even by northern China standards. The kind of cold that turns breath to ice crystals instantly. The kind that kills exposed flesh in minutes. And Chen Wei made his decision. If this story is giving you chills, hit that like button and help others discover this forgotten chapter of history. Share this with someone who loves dark mysteries and historical horror. The next part of this story reveals discoveries that still haunt researchers today. Let's discover what happens next. January 24th, 1570. Dawn. Chen Wei's frozen body was discovered 50 yards from Tower 17, halfway down the mountain path leading to the garrison below. He'd fled during the night wearing only his inner robes, without winter gear, without weapons, without supplies. The temperature at the time of death was estimated at -18 degrees Celsius. His eyes were open. His mouth was locked in a scream. And his hands were positioned in a Buddhist warding gesture, fingers splayed toward the tower. The relief patrol discovered him first, a routine supply column making its way up the mountain path. Squad leader Zhang Wen, a 20-year veteran, initially thought they'd found a frozen statue left by previous inhabitants. The body's positioning looked unnatural, staged. It wasn't until they came within 10 feet that they recognized Chen Wei's face beneath the frost. Zhang Wen's official report, filed later that day at Juyongguan Garrison headquarters, describes his growing dread as the patrol climbed higher. We observe no smoke from Tower 17's heating fire. Standard protocol requires visible smoke during winter rotations. As we ascended, we noted absolute silence. No guard calls, no dog barking. The Mastiffs always bark when patrols approach. This is their purpose. The silence felt deliberate, as though the mountain itself held its breath. They found the Mastiffs at 7:43 a.m. 7 Tibetan Mastiffs, each weighing between 140 and 160 pounds, transformed into frozen sculptures. But the details, the specific horrifying details, told a story that garrison commanders would spend months trying to suppress. Each dog was chained to an iron post driven into the frozen ground. Each chain measured exactly 15 paces in length, long enough for the animal to patrol a specific sector, short enough to prevent the chains from tangling with each other. The posts formed a perfect perimeter around Tower 17's entrance, positioned with geometric precision. Vajra, the alpha male, faced due north toward Mongolia. Dharma faced northeast. Akshobhya faced east. Hayagriva southeast, Mahakala south, Yamantaka southwest. Bhairava faced west, 7 directions, 7 guardians, 7 frozen sentinels. Their positioning wasn't random or accidental. This was deliberate, ritual. Squad leader Zhang approached Vajra first. The Mastiff's fur had crystallized into spikes, each hair transformed into an ice needle. Frost covered the dog's eyes, but beneath the frost, the eyes remained open, fixed on the northern horizon. The jaw was locked open, teeth exposed in what Zhang described as an expression of pure fury, as though the animal died in mid-attack. But fury directed at what? Private Chen Yong, no relation to handler Chen Wei, examined the chains more closely. Each chain bore scratch marks where the dogs had bitten the metal repeatedly, deep grooves from teeth strong enough to crack bone. Some chains showed evidence of hours of sustained gnawing. The dogs had tried desperately to break free, not to flee, to attack. The food bowls told another story. Each bowl contained frozen meat, premium beef mixed with grain, a standard military ration for working dogs. The meat showed no signs of having been touched. The water trough similarly remained full, iced now, but clearly unused. The dogs hadn't died of starvation or thirst. They'd been chained outside during the coldest night of the year and left to freeze. But by whom? Zhang Wen ordered his men to secure the perimeter before approaching the tower itself. Standard military protocol for potentially compromised positions. 2 soldiers climbed to elevated positions on nearby cliff faces to provide covering observation. 3 others formed a wedge formation behind Zhang as he approached the tower door. The door stood open. This violated every security protocol. During winter rotations, tower doors remained sealed except during guard changes or supply deliveries. Heat conservation was essential to survival. An open door in -18-degree weather would render the tower's interior uninhabitable within hours. Zhang peered inside. Darkness. Complete darkness. The heating fire had died, possibly days ago, judging by the cold radiating from the entrance. No movement, no sound. He called out in accordance with protocol. "Commander Feng Bao, this is Squad Leader Zhang Wen with the relief column. Respond immediately." Silence. Zhang's men entered in formation, torches raised. The tower's lower chamber, normally heated, normally occupied, felt like a tomb. Their breath formed clouds that hung motionless in the still air. The fire pit contained only ashes, frozen solid. Sleeping mats lay rolled against the walls, unused. Food supplies remained secured in their storage chests. Water jugs frozen. No sign of the garrison, no sign of struggle. No blood, no weapons, no indication of violence. The men had simply vanished. Zhang ordered a thorough search. The tower consisted of 3 levels, the lower chamber for living quarters, the middle level for weapons storage and record-keeping, and the upper platform for observation and signaling. Each level revealed the same eerie absence. Personal belongings remained untouched. Commander Feng's writing desk held partially completed reports. Lu Xing's spare boot sat beside his sleeping mat. On the upper observation platform, they found the garrison's telescope positioned toward the north, still focused, still aimed at the Mongol steppes, as though whoever had been watching simply stepped away and forgot to return. Private Chen Yong discovered the final piece of evidence that transformed this from a mysterious disappearance into something far darker. In the middle chamber, partially hidden beneath a loose floorboard, he found a leather journal. The cover bore no name, but the handwriting inside matched Chen Wei's style. The handler had been keeping a private record separate from the official garrison log. The final entry was dated January 23rd, written in increasingly erratic handwriting. "Commander Feng refuses to listen. The dogs know. They have always known. Vajra tried to warn us 17 days ago. Now it's too late. They're coming up from below, not from outside. From below, from inside the mountain." The old one spoke of this, the hungry stones, the spaces between. "Feng sealed us in. He thinks he's protecting the empire. He doesn't understand he's feeding it. I must run. I must warn the garrison. If anyone finds this, do not enter the lower chamber after dark. Do not sleep here. Do not—" The entry ended mid-sentence. Zhang Wen ordered an immediate evacuation. Whatever had happened at Tower 17, whatever had driven Chen Wei to flee into fatal cold, whatever had convinced Commander Feng to chain 7 valuable military assets outside to freeze, it remained unexplained and potentially dangerous. As his patrol descended the mountain, carrying Chen Wei's frozen body in the handler's journal, Zhang looked back once. Tower 17 stood silent against the gray winter sky. The 7 Mastiffs remained at their posts, eternal guardians watching over something no living person had witnessed, and in that moment, Zhang Wen understood why the dogs faced outward. They weren't positioned to watch for external threats. They were positioned to contain something inside. The disappearance of Commander Feng Bao and 6 elite soldiers triggered an immediate military investigation. General Wu Weisheng, commander of the Juyongguan garrison and a veteran of 32 years' service, personally led the inquiry. His investigation team consisted of 12 soldiers, 3 civil officials, and a Buddhist monk named Lama Dorje, included specifically to address Chen Wei's references to Tibetan spiritual beliefs in his final journal entry. They returned to Tower 17 on January 27, 1570. The tower hadn't changed. The Mastiffs remained frozen at their posts. The interior remained empty. But 3 days of continued cold had created new complications. Ice now coated the interior walls. The heating fire, when relit, barely penetrated the accumulated cold. General Wu's report describes the tower as feeling fundamentally wrong, as though the structure itself rejected human warmth. Lama Dorje examined the Mastiffs with particular attention. His observations recorded by Wu's scribe provide crucial insight. These animals did not die of cold alone. Yes, the temperature killed them, but observe their expressions. 7 dogs, 7 different states of freezing, yet each shows identical facial positioning. Lips drawn back, teeth bared, eyes fixed forward. In natural death by freezing, animals curl inward, conserving heat. These dogs remained extended, aggressive. They died fighting. Not fighting the cold. Fighting to maintain their position, whatever they were chained, to prevent from emerging. They understood their duty completely. The Lama performed a traditional Tibetan ritual called Tiarvo Kro, a ceremony meant to bind malevolent spirits. He walked the tower's perimeter, touching each mastiff, chanting prayers. When he reached Vajra, he stopped. His hand trembled as he touched the frozen alpha male's head. This one saw it clearly, Dorje said. This one looked directly at what came. General Wu pressed for details. What had the dogs seen? What spiritual threat did the Lama detect? Dorje's response appears in the investigation record. There are places where the earth is thin, where the boundary between this world and the lower realms grows permeable. The ancient texts speak of such places along the Great Wall. The stones here are built on thousands of years of death. Every dynasty, every war, every fallen soldier. Blood soaks deep. Sometimes it soaks too deep. Sometimes it reaches something that was already waiting below. The dogs knew. Animals always know. The civil officials dismissed this as superstition. They demanded concrete evidence. Bodies, cause of death. Logical explanations for the garrison's disappearance. The investigation team spent 3 days conducting a detailed search of Tower 17 and the surrounding area. They discovered several disturbing details that the initial relief patrol had missed. First, scratches on the interior walls of the lower chamber, similar to the scratches found on the door, but deeper. More frantic. These scratches came from inside, made by something trying to get out, or by someone trying to prevent something from getting out. Second, the sleeping mats. Upon closer inspection, all 7 mats showed signs of having been recently used. Body impressions, disturbed blankets. But the mats were positioned strangely. 6 of them formed a tight circle around the 7th, which lay in the chamber's exact center. The configuration resembled protective formation used during military sieges. Third, and most disturbing, beneath the loose floorboard where Chen Wei had hidden his journal, they found additional evidence. A small brass bell, its clapper removed, a piece of paper bearing Buddhist mantras written in blood, and 7 strands of Mastiff fur braided together formed into a circle. Chen Wei had been attempting protective magic before he fled. The investigation reached its most significant discovery on January 29th, when Private Huang Yi volunteered to descend into the tower's foundation level, a small storage cellar where emergency supplies were kept. Most watchtowers along this section of the Great Wall included such cellars, carved directly into the mountain stone. Huang descended with a torch and rope. His shouts brought the entire team running within minutes. The cellar had been sealed, not with the standard wooden trapdoor, but with stones. Heavy stones that would have required multiple men working in coordination to position. The stones had been mortared with a mixture of mud, and what forensic examination later suggested was blood. And carved into each stone, crude but unmistakable, were Buddhist protective symbols. Someone had sealed the cellar from above. Recently, deliberately. General Wu ordered the seal broken. His soldiers worked for 6 hours removing the stones and mortar. When they finally cleared the entrance, a smell emerged. Not death, not decay, but something they described as stone dust and ice and something else. Something ancient. Huang Yi descended again, this time with 3 other soldiers providing support. They found the cellar empty except for standard supplies, grain sacks, dried meat, water barrels. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explained the elaborate ceiling. But on the cellar's far wall, scratched into the stone in what appeared to be a hurried hand, they found a message. The handwriting matched Commander Feng Bao's style. We sealed it, it won't hold. The dogs understood, forgive us. No bodies were ever recovered. Commander Feng Bao, Vice Commander Lu Xing, and the 5 junior guards simply vanished. No trace of them was found within Tower 17, along T mountain paths, or in the surrounding wilderness. An expanded search covering 30 square miles over 2 weeks yielded nothing. The official military investigation, completed in March 1570, concluded that the garrison had deserted their posts, a capital offense. All 7 men were declared outlaws, their names struck from military records, their families stripped of military benefits and pensions. But General Wu Weichong filed a confidential addendum to his report, marked for the Emperor's eyes only. This document, discovered in 1893 during archival research at the Forbidden City, tells a different story. Your Majesty, I must report my true findings while official records reflect what political necessity demands. The men stationed at Tower 17 did not desert. They died performing their duty, though the nature of that duty remains unclear. I have interviewed Lama Dorje extensively. I have studied the Tibetan texts he provided. I have examined the physical evidence personally. I believe Commander Feng Bao discovered something within or beneath Tower 17, something that required extreme measures to contain. He chained the Mastiffs as a final defensive perimeter. He sealed the cellar against an emerging threat. And when containment failed, He and his men sacrificed themselves to ensure whatever existed there could not spread. I recommend Tower 17 be abandoned permanently and sealed. I further recommend similar examinations be conducted at other watchtowers along this section of wall, particularly those built over ancient burial sites or former battlefields. Emperor Longqing's response was brief and final. General Wu's recommendations are denied. The Great Wall must remain fully operational. Tower 17 will be regarrisoned immediately. These matters are closed to further discussion. But the tower was never regarrisoned. Military records show that Tower 17 was officially listed as operational until 1644, when the Ming Dynasty fell, but garrison rosters reveal that no soldiers were ever assigned there after January 1570. The tower was quietly removed from rotation cycles. Supply columns were rerouted to bypass it. Official explanations cited structural concerns that were never detailed. The Mastiffs remained at their posts for 6 months. Spring thaw eventually released their bodies from the ice. A disposal team buried them in a mass grave 100 yards from the tower. No marker was erected, no ceremony performed. The 7 guardian dogs were erased from official records as thoroughly as the men who had served beside them. Local Mongolian tribes, however, preserved a different memory. Their oral histories, collected by ethnographers in the 19th century, referred to Tower 17 as Chino un Kalga, the Gate of Screaming. They claimed to hear sounds emanating from the tower on winter nights. Not human screams, not animal cries, something older, something hungry, and they warned their children never approach the lonely tower where 7 stone dogs still stand guard, even though no stone dogs existed there, even though the tower stood empty. The warnings persisted for generations. The Tower 17 incident fundamentally altered Ming Dynasty military policy regarding the use of animals in border defense, though the changes were implemented quietly, without public acknowledgement of what had occurred at Juyongguan Pass. In April 1570, just 3 months after the disappearance, the Imperial War Ministry issued new regulations concerning Mastiff deployment along the Great Wall. These regulations, preserved in the Da Minghui Dian collected statutes of the Ming Dynasty, mandated that dogs must be rotated to different towers every 3 weeks, rather than remaining stationed at a single location for extended periods. This prevented animals from forming deep territorial attachments to specific structures. No tower could maintain more than 4 Mastiffs simultaneously. The previous practice of deploying 6 to 8 dogs was discontinued. All Mastiff chains must be equipped with quick-release mechanisms, allowing handlers to free the animals immediately if necessary. Permanent chaining was prohibited. Most tellingly, handlers were authorized to euthanize dogs displaying supernatural awareness behaviors defined as sustained refusal to enter towers, unprovoked defensive posturing toward structures rather than external threats, or coordinated howling lasting more than 15 minutes. These regulations remained in effect until the Ming Dynasty's collapse in 1644. They were never publicly explained. No official documentation connected them to Tower 17, but military historians note the timing. Just 12 weeks after Chen Wei's frozen body was discovered, the incident also influenced broader spiritual practices within the military. The War Ministry, which had previously dismissed Buddhist and Tibetan spiritual traditions as superstition incompatible with military discipline, began quietly consulting with lamas and monks regarding tower placements and garrison assignments. By 1580, every watchtower along the northern sections of the Great Wall underwent what official records termed geomantic evaluation, though the evaluators were Buddhist monks rather than traditional feng shui practitioners. Towers identified as problematic were either sealed permanently or subjected to extensive spiritual cleansing rituals before being returned to service. Records indicate that between 1570 and 1590, 47 watchtowers along a 200-mile stretch of the Great Wall were permanently abandoned. Official explanations cited everything from structural instability to inconvenient positioning, but modern analysis reveals that all 47 towers shared common characteristics. They were built over ancient burial sites, former battlefields, or locations where multiple dynasties had constructed and destroyed previous fortifications. The same locations where, according to Tibetan Buddhist cosmology, the boundary between the physical world and the lower realms grows dangerously thin. The Tower 17 incident also influenced Ming Dynasty policies regarding information suppression and military secrecy. The cover-up was remarkably effective. Despite involving dozens of soldiers, multiple investigations, and the permanent abandonment of a strategic watchtower, no contemporary public records mention the incident at all. This wasn't accidental. In May 1570, Emperor Longqing issued a decree, making it a capital offense to spread rumors regarding supernatural events at military installations. The decree was officially justified as preventing enemy psychological warfare. Mongol raiders often used ghost stories and superstition to demoralize Chinese troops. But the timing suggests the decree was specifically designed to suppress discussion of Tower 17. Families of the disappeared soldiers were told their relatives had deserted and were living as outlaws. They were encouraged to forget, to move on, to never speak of it again. Most complied. The alternative, insisting on the truth, meant social stigma, economic hardship, and potential prosecution for defending traitors. Only one family persisted, the widow and children of junior guard Wu Teng. For 12 years, Wu's widow petitioned the imperial court for a review of her husband's case. Her letters, archived at Beijing's first historical archives, provide heartbreaking glimpses into her certainty that Wu had not deserted. My husband was 23 years old. He had never traveled more than 50 miles from Beijing. He spoke no Mongol language. He had no survival skills for wilderness living. He feared cold weather since childhood. I am told he deserted to Mongolia with his companions. This is impossible. Something happened at that tower. Something terrible. Please, I beg the courts. Mercy, tell me the truth. Let me grieve properly. Her petitions were denied repeatedly. In 1582, she disappeared. No records indicate what happened to her or her children. The family simply vanishes from all documentation, a common fate for those who questioned official narratives too persistently. But the most significant long-term impact of Tower 17 concerns what historians call the archaeology of silence, the systematic erasure of inconvenient truths from official records and the lengths to which institutions will go to maintain convenient fictions. The Ming Dynasty survived another 74 years after Tower 17. During that time, thousands of documents were created, preserved, and archived. Detailed military reports, garrison rosters, supply requisitions, weather logs. The bureaucratic machinery of Imperial China produced meticulous records of nearly everything. Nearly everything. Tower 17 appears in construction records from 1368. It appears in military strategic documents from 1405 through 1569. And then it simply stops appearing. No decommissioning order. CTLA preserved in ice, inside their locked homes in the middle of summer. Until then, remember, history is written by the victors. But sometimes, the victors choose not to write at all. See you in the next video.